Alright, I'm back with some parts and parts and parts on the table. You can see there is a disassembled Axial transmission here. This is actually the transmission out of the Oli. It is a SCX10 X10 style trans case with hot racing hardened steel gears and a few other updates to it. Here's the issue I had this weekend. I'm going to tell you right now that I had no issue with any of the parts. Um, except for one, um, and we'll get to that. But this weekend, we smoked a spur gear. This was probably my fault. One of the screws backed out in the motor. The motor rotated slightly, and the pinion actually flattened out a good portion of teeth on this spur gear. Um, it happens. Maybe I didn't get enough Loctite on there, forgot to reapply it. Whatever happened, spur gear's dead, no big deal. These are actually pretty cheap, but I will come back later with an update on this. For right now, we're going to go through other things I've done to this transmission. I've actually switched this transmission from the older style input shaft to the newer style SCX10 input shaft. It's actually the double clutch pad, and you can probably tell if you look at this, you can see the actual clutch pad spot there and there. Um, what I actually done, you actually have to buy this top shaft separate, and you can actually get these parts, all the slipper parts, to put with it for a fairly decent price. I think at the time I bought it, I got out with about $25 or $30 in total expense on that. It was pretty cool. And it has had no issues at all. If that screw did not come loose, I'm sure this spur gear would be just fine. There's no sign of wear on these teeth at all um, from running this with, I think I'm running a 13 tooth hardened steel pinion. No sign of wear at all. So whatever happened, that thing came loose, caught these teeth. It, no big deal. It's a brushless system. That's going to happen. Um, but yeah, great upgrade. You're looking to do something different to your old style transmission. If you're still running the older style, and it's working for you, go with it. But if you're going to run a little bit more power and you want to spend some but not have to spend a whole bunch, it's a really good way to go. Next, I actually got a set of these awesome extended Holmes Outdrives. Um, Fantastic part. So much better, beefier than the Axial steel Outdrives. I'm not going to say those are bad, but when you're running a bigger powered brushless motor on 3S, hell, even on 2S, you get jammed up and stuff. These are probably less likely to snap than those. I did have an issue with the initial installation though. In using the hot racing hardened steel transmission gears, they would not fit in this bottom gear correctly. Well, when I actually went to take the old outdrives out, one of the gears was still, or excuse me, one of the outdrives was still stuck in this gear. I had to tap it out pretty hard to get it out. So after taking it out and looking at it and contemplating, I actually discovered there was a little bit of a lip on the vertical portion of the inside of this bottom gear. With my rotary tool and a metal cutting bit, I actually went and cut out that little lip. Um, it made them fit, but it was a bit of a task. These are some tough gears. It took a good 30 minutes of grinding just to get that out. Um, Obviously, I didn't want to overgrind it, but I don't think that was an issue with this. It's a pretty good quality steel. So after getting them installed, I ran it for a while, but I got kind of curious. Um, Again, I don't blame Holmes for that not fitting because, again, the axial outdrives, one of them did not fit in there correctly, and it had to have been the machining on this gear. This is one of the older style gears from Hot Racing. I've had these gears for a long time, and you can see there's hardly any wear at all on those teeth. I've had them for a few years. Now, I actually found a user on RCC who had just the bottom gear of the Hot Racing light hardened steel gears. And I gotta say, I was really surprised um, how well these fit in this bottom gear. You can see it just slides right in there. No big deal. Bottom's right out on the inside of this bottom gear. Same thing with this side. You can see this side is a lot thicker than this side. This is actually the threaded side. This is the side with the hole. You can see it just slides right in. Again, much better material than the Axial steel Outdrives. They're very thick, and again, they're extended. You can actually flip these either way you want to clear a larger spur gear. In my case, I have an extremely long rear wheelbase, so using this longer outdrive in the rear shortens my drive line a little bit and has less of um, uh, a an exposed drive line to get hung up on stuff. So that's what I've done to this transmission so far. That will be going in. I had read before that the spur gear was compatible with the Yeti spur gear. And looking at the stock Yeti, I think it's a 64 tooth, and this is a 56. But with the race applications that the Yeti has, there are actually a multitude of spur gears available for the Yeti. Uh, I am going to try out the Hot Racing Yeti 56 tooth spur gear. I salvaged the slipper pads off of this spur gear, and we'll be installing that hopefully in the next 2 or 3 days. But ultimately, I really want to get the Robinson Racing Yeti spur gear in 56 tooth. I would like to go with a bigger spur gear, just for gearing purposes, get it geared really low, but I don't want to not use my spur gear cover. Just the way that my electronics are in the truck, the wires, the way that they're running, I don't want to risk anything rubbing, especially with the sharp steel spur gear and motor wires and 3S battery wire. So we don't want to have a problem with that. So far, that's it on this transmission. It'll be back together in the next day or two. Actually, 2 or 3 days, because I actually have to go to Reno and pick up the spur gear. So I will come back sometime, show you the completed transmission. This video's already ran along for almost 8 minutes. So I will come back and get back with you on the parts that go in this transmission.